Cashflow Diary Podcast, Episode 4.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
Hello and welcome. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm glad you're here. And those of you joining us for, say, the first or 51st or 101st or how many ever times it's been that you've heard, welcome back. If it is your first time, make sure that you listen to the first episode so that you can understand the format of the show, more importantly, how we're working, and the fact that we're primarily educational only. You'll be able to get lots of information, background a little bit about myself, and just how the show will continue to run and the websites and things of that nature. Speaking of websites, hopefully by now you've taken advantage of the free course Cash Flow Foundation on the website, cashflowdiary.com. That's the beginning of us giving to you so that you have some foundation, some beginnings of how to be able to create cash flow in your own life, because it's definitely necessary when it comes to the idea of being able to retire or just live. You've got to have some of that sustainable cash flow and know how you can actually create it. What does it take to create it, and how to put yourself in a position mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially to be able to make it all happen. If you're listening to this before the actual website is finished or the course is finished, go ahead and make sure that your name and info is there so that you have the ability to take advantage of the courses when it becomes available, so that you can also get it at no cost to yourself. Hopefully you've been finding some information in the past couple of episodes very, very helpful, very, very inspiring, very, very hopeful. I mean, I don't really know. You and I haven't met personally, but I'm hoping that some of the information that we're sharing has the ability to give you some of the tools, techniques necessary to go out there and begin to create your own, I'll call it a cash flow dynasty for yourself. That would be fun. Let's start with today's quote. Today's quote is, nobody, and I like this, listen, nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. I love that. Nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. That's like what is so necessary for so many of our lives. I know for myself, for those of you when you listen to episode 1, you heard, just all the stuff that my wife and I, etc., have gone through. But more importantly, the fact that you can choose to focus on starting today and making a new ending. And that's pretty much, what we're doing. We're taking what you currently know, we're taking what you currently have and helping you create a different ending than what the ending currently looks like for you. The person who said that is Maria Robinson. Now, when I found it online, it didn't have anything other than her name, Maria Robinson. I don't know which Maria Robinson that is. If you know Maria Robinson, please have her contact us so that we can tell more about who she is and what she's done. But right now, I don't know who Maria Robinson is. I just know I like what she had to say. Also this week, what came to me was a question from one of the people that I know locally. He simply asked a question, and I figured it would be a good question to share with you so that everyone can benefit. The question is simple as this. It says, I messed up in making an offer. Listening to some education again, he hopes to be able to redo the offer correctly. Here's his question. Question for me was, is it better to have a real estate agent make the offer when dealing with a seller's agent? Now, this presupposes you know a couple of things. Sometimes in a real estate transaction, you do have a real estate agent. Sometimes there's a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. Sometimes it's one person or sometimes it's two people. Either way it goes, what has to happen is that there has to be a transaction that takes place, and some people use a real estate agent to facilitate that transaction. So what he's asking is, if I run across a deal and there's a seller's agent already involved, meaning the house I find is already represented by someone who has a real estate license agent or broker in my area, do I need to go get my own agent or broker? That's a great question. Specifically, you don't have to get your agent or broker in any of this. You can sell your own real estate that you have title to, or buy your own real estate for your own account. In general, when you need that real estate license, is to sell or offer to sell, I should say, real estate that is controlled by others. Okay. So if you are the buyer in this particular situation, you quote unquote never really need a real estate agent. Specifically, I happen to know that in this listener's questions, what he's talking about is single family houses. So when you're going for single family houses, a real estate agent is not necessarily needed. However, for myself personally, because that's what he was asking, what I choose to do is for single family housing, I choose to purchase without a realtor or real estate agent, and I choose to sell with a realtor or real estate agent. Because a lot of the creative acquisitions and techniques that are required for building cash flow, that are necessary just to get deals done in some cases, aren't necessarily beneficial when it comes to having another person or party involved who may or may not understand the information or the techniques or whatever it is that I'm putting out there to make happen. So I don't want to run the risk of having another person or having to educate another person in the middle to be able to just do the deal the way that I want it done. Now, that doesn't mean you won't use a real estate agent or broker. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying specifically, though, is you have the option. Now, it's obviously based upon your level of education. If you don't have the skills or techniques for negotiation, if you don't have the ability to understand the moving parts, specifically the moving parts, and understanding the disclosures and all the other things, you definitely should be using a real estate agent, period. If, however, you've had access to some education or some information that allows you to competently and confidently not need that information for your local market, on the buy side specifically, you may not want to use a real estate agent. Another reason you may not want to use a real estate agent is simply because their compensation structure is usually, not always, because there are flat fee and other ways of compensating, but their compensation structure is usually targeted towards a higher price, as it's a percentage of sales. So a higher price actually helps them earn more money. Now, if it's one thing that you'll get from me, is that I enjoy actually paying quality, keywords there, quality team members for quality work. So I'm not saying you got to beat them up and try to get 0.5%, listing or representation. That is so far from what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. However, even if it is only 0.5%, the amount of dollars that are allocated towards that 0.5% increase, the higher the price. Meaning, if I'm looking to buy, I want to buy at the lowest price possible. That's my thought process going in. So I need to make sure that I can buy at, a price that's decent enough to make the deal work for me, which may not necessarily mean it's in the realtor's interest. For example, how much time is it going to take him or her to close the deal and do the paperwork and handle and open and close escrow, arrange insurance and financing? I mean, they definitely work very, very hard for their compensation. So if, let's just say, and make up a number real fast, say you were buying a house and the entire house, the whole house cost $40,000. Well, 6% of $40,000 really may not be a lot of money. And usually when it's a percentage of sales, so if you've got the seller's agent, they're going to get 3%, and the buyer's agent would get 3%. So we're talking like very little money. for what if it takes 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days? I mean, I don't know, but you've got to think about that at the same time. For me, I've had way more success being able, especially with single family houses, to go out there and represent myself on the buy side. And when it comes time to sell them, you either using a realtor or some sort of wholesaling technique so that you have the ability to go ahead and at least control and get control of the deal. Now, for commercial real estate, completely different story. Too many moving parts there. And I often recommend that everybody just use a commercial agent or a commercial broker in that regard, because there are so many many more moving parts that it's ridiculous. And when you begin to transact, say, apartment buildings or strip malls and those things, you'll begin to understand exactly what I'm talking about, because everything changes. And it's kind of like the wild west with very, very, little protections. And at the end of the day, you may not want the protections. All I'm trying to bring to your attention is that you have a choice. You can leverage the knowledge, time, and experience of someone else and add a fee or a cost. And there's nothing wrong with paying that cost. But also understand, what you're getting. What level of experience does that realtor have? Or, are they really good? Are they better as a buying agent, or are they better as a selling agent? Does that realtor themselves own property, etc.? Look and listen to the previous episode when we were talking about building teams for some of the other questions that you would definitely want to ask as well. Okay, so let's get over to our main topic for today. That is simply, we're going to talk about changing patterns, because, no matter how old you are, you have a pattern, from the pretty much the time you're born, right? You've got a pattern. You've got a pattern for eating. You got a pattern for sleeping. You like to wake up. Some of you know, hey, I'm a morning person. I'm a night person. I'm a midday person. I get tired at this time, etc., etc. But our patterns, those habits, those things, are those concepts, if you will, are the actual driving force that begin to determine so many things about who we are and what we have available. For example, you may not have heard this before. I'm going to expand upon it a little bit, but it's called the process of manifestation. The process of manifestation. What it simply is suggesting is, how do things come into being? How does something come from nothing or a perceived nothing? Where does it start? What is the process, and how does it end? For example, it is stated that oftentimes things begin with a thought or an idea. You have a thought long enough, and what it begins to create within you are feelings. Those feelings persist long enough, and they become beliefs. Those beliefs grow stronger and motivate you to take action, and you create activity. As you go out there to create activity, you begin to develop and experience results. You get enough of those results, and what begins to form are habits. And enough of those habits, or repeating those habits consistently over time, they begin to shape your character. And then from your character, you reap your destiny. So it starts with your thoughts, begins and goes through the process of feelings, beliefs, activities, results, habits, eventually resulting in character and destiny. And when I say character, these are things that you are absolutely known for. For example, some of you are known for speeding, okay? I know that in the past year or so, I've definitely gotten more than one speeding ticket, and I shouldn't have done it, and that was totally wrong. But I am definitely known for possibly, looking before I leap, or speeding, or jumping ahead in a lot of ways, because that's just part of who I am. In fact, I often tell people I'm the guy who is, you know how they say, fire, aim, ready? That's how I describe myself. I'm more of a fire, aim, ready kind of person, more than a ready, aim, fire person. And some of you are ready, 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 aim, ready, aim, ready, and then you completely change subjects and you never fire. But you get what I'm saying. It all typically starts with a thought that leads to a feeling that leads to a belief, activity, results, habits, character, and then a destiny. What we must begin to do is to reshape all of those things, and starting with our thoughts. And that's the whole point of this, podcast, cash flow diary, etc., is to help shape some of those thoughts that lead to creating the destiny as it relates to, owning business, being able to build or maintain or grow or own a portfolio of real estate or anything for that matter. Because a lot of the techniques and a lot of the characteristics and thought processes, they transfer very, very well, and they go all across the board. So the process of manifestation, if you will, is something that we must pay attention to. A book out there that can help you with some of these things and tangibly is Gary Keller's book. It's the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and he talks about a process of becoming that real estate investor by first learning to think like a millionaire, buy $1 million worth of real estate, own $1 million worth of equity, and receive $1 million, dollars in cash. That's exactly the process that we're referring to, but he's stating it in a completely different way. You may have heard it in many different forms. At the end of the day, you've got to be aware that you have habits that are formed from all of this that determine where you end up. And the fun part is, at least what I consider to be part of the fun, is that all of us are in the process of becoming. We're in the process of becoming something. The question is are we becoming that something consciously? Or are we just, existing and meandering through life and taking it as we come? Additionally, when we're think about the process of becoming, you can also be encouraged and know that the process of becoming anything does not happen, quote unquote, overnight. How long does a caterpillar sit in its cocoon before it comes out? And many times, specifically for some reason with real estate investing, we get into the mindset that, in a 3-day boot camp, not only could we learn wholesaling and fixing and flipping and short sales and buying and holding, but we think we can walk away with the internet business to boot. And I don't know about you, but I've not found that to be true. I found that the process of becoming or learning any skill set takes time. I mean, tying your shoe didn't happen the first time. Riding a bike didn't happen the first time out. Learning to drive a car. Right now, I'm actually beginning to teach one of my oldest daughters, to be able to drive, which is, a ridiculous thought when I think about just how short that time has been. But she's learning to drive. And in that process, it doesn't happen overnight. She doesn't get it and grasp it immediately. That doesn't mean she doesn't have the capability of grasping it, nor does it mean that she never will get it. It just means it's going to take some more time, consistent practice, or PDR, practice, drill, rehearsing, which is a basic concept, right? That you learned, playing a sport or studying your homework or doing something. You've got to practice, drill, and rehearse, and this is no different. You've got to practice the thoughts and practice understanding the feelings, and we've got to be around the individuals who have what we want so that we can understand their thoughts, feelings, beliefs, activities, results, habits, character, and destiny. Those are the things that I like to gain or glean from individuals who I hang around. I want to know how you think. Because how you think is how you ended up where you are. Well, I want to know about the mistakes you've made and what you used to think. Because what you used to think may be how I currently think. And that could be setting me up for some sort of potential failure that I'm not aware of at this moment. And I want to know it now. So that's part of the benefit of being able to be mentored in any way, shape, or form. So here's my point. We all have habits. We have to learn new ones. We have to change our patterns. For example, maybe you have the habit of brushing your teeth every morning and when you wake up. Maybe you don't. Now, obviously, I hope you have the habit of brushing your teeth. But in case you don't, and you want to have better dental hygiene and have your teeth last longer and all those good things your mom said, guess you should start brushing your teeth. So let's talk about some of the habits as it relates to a real estate investor. What a habit of a real estate investor be, say, writing offers? Would a habit of a real estate investor be, say, going to networking events? Would a habit of a real estate investor be growing a database of contacts and understanding what resources they have and what they're looking for? Would developing, say, yourself personally and understanding your own emotions, the difference between fear, greed, and discipline, and being able to help those emotions be tame and grow and understand how you respond to them? Are there any technical requirements, i.e., do you need some additional vocabulary? What are some of those habits? What is the specialized knowledge, as it says in the book Think and Grow Rich, that you would need to have, or that a real estate investor needs to have? What are those habits? Would a real estate investor consistently invest in their own education well and above and beyond any sort of technical details necessary so that they could become a better person, so that they could serve more people? To me, these are all habits that a real estate investor possesses, pursues, and continues to improve upon. If they're not habits you currently have, that's okay. That's the point of being in the process of becoming. The caterpillar isn't, overnight a butterfly. It one day realizes, so to speak, that, hey, now it's time to become something else. And then they go into the cocoon and do their thing, and then they break out and boom, butterfly. You get my point. So maybe now is the time for you to understand that, hey, it's time for me to go in the cocoon and so that I can come out and be a butterfly, and I've got to change some of the habits. And the key thing to realize here is when we start talking about change, it brings up all kinds of emotions. And I know that, but understand that the change happens instantly. One instant you're a smoker, the next instant you're not. What's different is what you do after you make that decision. What habits do you change? One instant you're an employee, the next instant you're self-employed. What is different in how you maintain that new status, if you will, is by changing the habits that follow that decision. One moment you're a single family investor, the next moment you do apartment buildings. What changes are the habits that you've developed as a single family investor over to a multifamily investor, and being able to reinforce those habits daily, constantly, in and out, so that you eventually become what it is that you were seeking to become, because your thoughts change, your feelings change, what you believe, your activity, your results, habits, character, destiny, all of these things begin to be congruent with the new identity that you're developing. And it starts with how you're thinking about it. And you've got to ultimately understand that something as simple as reading books is a habit. And you say, well, I don't read so well. In fact, that's one of my challenges is, my reading speed is typically, slow. However, I can consume lots of books audio. And there are a lot of unabridged audiobooks that are great right now to be consumed. And that's a habit that I think entrepreneurs just in general must develop. Well, at least if you want to succeed, their habits. That's one of the things that I wanted to bring to you so that you have an understanding. Secondly, understand that some of the activities that are necessary in order to be, a real estate investor or to be anything, sometimes we treat those activities as events, and they're not events. Events are something that you prepare for, something that you build up to, and you have this great, time, and then release, and then you're like, wow, man, that was a great event, and man, the next time I do that, I'm gonna do a little differently, but I'm not gonna do that for a while because I'm so tired, and we put so much resources and stuff into that. For example, here's an event that many people participate in across the world, myself included, and it happens every year, Christmas, right? That's an event. It happens once a year. You make lots of preparations for it, right? You make all kinds of preparations for it. You go places, you do things, you buy special food. You might even clean up your house special just for that. And, when it's over, then it's over. That's an event. What I'm saying to you, though, however, is that being a real estate investor, there are some things that many new investors treat as events that are just common course. Could you imagine if a nurse came to you and made an event out of drawing blood or administering some medication, or connecting an IV to someone. Could you imagine? They're like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what I did today. I had to connect an IV to a person, and we did this and we did this. And could you imagine? I mean, wouldn't you suspect that that's something that they do every day? Why is this such a big deal? What is so unique about, connecting an IV? Now, I'm not saying I don't have the skill set to connect an IV. And so maybe the first 2 or 3 or 4 times that I do it, yeah, that it's kind of an event. But after a while, I've done it so many times, right? It's not an event anymore. It's just what you do. Same thing when it comes to writing an offer. Most new investors, I find, tend to treat writing an offer like it's an event. It's not. It's what you do. It's the foundation of what you do. You make no money on a property or land or anything that you don't control. If you don't control it, no asset pays you if you don't control it. You may not have even created the asset to begin with, but because you don't control it currently, you get no income from it. And, here's a quick example. Speaking of Christmas, right? There's a song that plays every Christmas. Many of you have heard it, and I'm sure if it's even played in other countries. But you and I, or at least most of us listening to this, aren't the ones getting compensated every time that song plays. Here's the song. Feliz Navidad. Plays every year. But you and I don't get compensated on it, not because we didn't create it, but because we don't control it. Even if the creator of that song is no longer around, someone controls it, and he or she who controls it is the one who's getting paid for it. So you don't even have to be the creator, you just have to be the controller. And that's a key thing. Understand this. Writing an offer is not an event. Here's what writing an offer really is. Writing an offer is simply an invitation for a conversation. An invitation for a conversation. It's like extending your hand for a handshake. It's like a smile that, right after you say hello. Most people look at writing an offer as the end of the conversation. It's the beginning. Because I promise you, the offer that you've written, if written properly, the seller is going to have at least one concern. Okay? If all you do is write the offer and they say yes with no qualms, you wrote a bad offer for you. Trust me on that one, okay? If that's all they say is thank you and yes, we accept with no pushbacks, you probably wrote a bad offer, okay? And an offer is only an invitation for a conversation. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about the cash flow question from last week. Last week, we had the cash flow question. It was, what was the name of the location where the Federal Reserve Bank is thought to have been formed? The name of the location where the Federal Reserve Bank is thought to have been formed. The name of that location, again, I gave you the hint. It was also part of the title of a book. It's called Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island. The name of the book is The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. Gentleman I did have the pleasure of meeting earlier this year. Great guy. Definitely read the book. Will open your eyes. And go visit Jekyll Island one day. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the cash flow question for this week. What do the letters C, C, R, and ROI usually mean? Again, what do the letters C, C, R, and ROI usually mean? Answer those for yourself and increase your financial IQ. Let's get back to our main topic for today. And we're talking about just changing patterns and what some of those patterns are. And what we're going to talk about now is how to change some of those patterns, some techniques, 5 techniques that I think can be helpful for just learning to change your pattern. First of all, you must understand, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, you will be the same today except for 2 things: the people you meet and the books you read. The people you meet and the books you read. So now what you do to change that pattern is make a decision. Remember, the pattern changes instantly as soon as you begin to make a decision and follow it through. That's what's making the difference for you. So what you've got to decide to do is that you've got to decide if you're going to make that decision. And then you're going to follow it through. So the decision in this particular case is Am I going to read new books and meet new people? And if so, how many new people and how many new books on a monthly, weekly, daily basis? Some suggestions: I say meet a minimum of 5 new people a week and 2 books a month. Just start there. And if 2 books a month is too much, just start with 1. Reading or audio, it doesn't really matter. And where you meet the people isn't important as much as you do meet the people. That's what I want to say. Another technique that I've used and have to continue to use is what I call trapping yourself into success. By trapping yourself into success, what you are really doing is you're communicating to anyone, everyone, and all the people you know what you plan to do. Yeah, exactly. You start talking to people about, hey, I'm going to do this. Hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Hey, I'm going to make a website. Hey, I'm going to buy real estate. I'm going to write 5 offers a week. I'm going to do whatever. One of the things that will work towards your favor is the fact that your friends will later ask you, hey, how's that thing going? And then you want to be able to be in a position to say it's going well, and this is what happened, and this is what this, and this is what that. Trap yourself into success. Here's another one. Develop and understand why, and more importantly, how important and impactful you could be. Many of your friends, many of the people that you currently hang out with are looking for someone to cheer on. They're looking for someone to be successful. They're looking for someone. They want to get behind someone and be on somebody's team and say, I know that guy. Here's how I know that. Many of you, maybe you've spent some time watching the Olympics. I know I have. It's been on every one of my computer screens. It's been on the TV, everywhere I go, my iPad, iPhone, everything I turn on is going to have something Olympic related, especially right now. I want to know. I want to see the stories. I want to understand the athletes. What did they persevere through? What did they overcome? I want to cheer. Do you ever even find yourself cheering? It's 2 countries you have no affiliation to, but somehow you find a way through the TV screen or through their story or through something the commentator says to begin to root for one or the other. It's simple. We're all wanting to root for people who have impact. We all want to secretly, I think, be people of impact. And when we begin to understand how impactful we can be and what is possible, that actually gets us excited and keeps us going and keeps us moving towards the goals that it is that we say that we want. The way to do that, and maybe a little shameless plug here, is to make sure that you take advantage of the free course Cash Flow Foundation on the website. That's why it's created, is to help you understand, some of the things that are deep down inside, and most importantly, how those things can make you find the extra energy necessary to create, a complete new entity, a complete new business, or another whatever, to be able to pursue your life's dream of dancing or art or whatever it is, so that you can, make all those things happen, or just have a good business and have more time with your family. It doesn't really matter what you want to do once you have the asset and it's producing income. What is important is that you develop the discipline and understanding of what you're doing and why you're persevering through it, and the specific step-by-steps that you need in order to make that happen. And that's what Cash Flow Foundation is all about. Number 4. You must also understand, and this one's a toughie, you've got to accept and realize that your existing habits are a result of your best thinking. Your best thinking. That means that everything that you're currently experiencing in your life is a result of the best ideas you have ever had culminated into blah. And your blah is what you currently call life. Now you say, I don't like that. That's not my problem. It's yours. And we all have to focus on that. That is our problem. Just like it's mine. Everything that's happened in my life is, a result of my best thinking and implementation and skills and techniques. Here's why being willing to make that realization is important. Is because, like I said at the quote, right? Nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. And one of the ways that you're going to be able to do that is to develop a board of advisors, pay for mentoring, attend more seminars, learn how others who have done what you're wanting to do, learn how they think. That's the most valuable piece. Not necessarily the skills and techniques and the way they do it, but how do they think? That's what you want to focus on. You want to understand, what do they believe about the marketplace? What do they believe about their service? What do they believe that compels them to continually act in the way that they act, and so that they can get the results that they do? Because that's usually what we're looking at. We're looking at the results after they've done a lot of work on their thoughts and their feelings and their beliefs and their activities and their character and habits and all this other stuff. And we go, I want that. But it starts way back at the beginning. And we've got to get to a point where it's okay that we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And I've got a great team. You know, I love my CFO. I love my COO. They have some of the best ideas on the planet. My wife comes up with great ideas, you know, especially when it comes to marketing and taking care of folks. She's really good at that. You know, who in your life can you go to for just simple financial advice? And I don't mean financial advice as in, hey, I'm broke and you're broke, so let's get together. I'm talking, you know, the person that would be uncomfortable to talk to. You know, who do you know that earns 10 times what you currently earn? 5 times, 2 times, anything. Who's been able to do so. But they don't just earn more, but they earn more in a way that you respect. For example, it's easy to find be an employee that earns 30 grand and find an employee that earns 300 grand. Now, I'm not saying that that person doesn't have something that he or she can teach you, but what I am saying is that you want to find the entrepreneur, especially if you're endeavoring to become that entrepreneur and you're currently the employee. You're looking for that entrepreneur that earns 10 times what you earn, and asking him or her, how did you do that? How did you do that way, in that format? Okay, so you want to do that. You want to be open to the ideas of others, because being open to those ideas, that's usually where the solution is. You know, you got to let other people's ideas come in, germinate around, and make it better in your life. The 5th one is simple. I can't tell you right now what's on the radio. In my car, it has a radio, but I'm always listening to the podcasts or audiobooks or things that I believe will help me become a better, friend, father, husband, business person, etc. We've got iPhones and iPads today, MP3 players. There's no lacking of a device that can that can play what it is that you need to hear. There's no reason that can't be done. You jog or you exercise. Don't have a workout music tape. Have a workout audiobook. It doesn't really matter. There's a way to make it happen. But redeeming time in that fashion could help you begin to gain the thought processes of others, because that's what we gain when we read a book or listen to an audio program. And that's what you're gaining even by listening to the Cash Flow Diary. You're listening to the thoughts of others. When you read a book or listen to a podcast, etc., you're letting their thoughts in for the possibility of grasping onto just even one of them, so that thought can help you begin to create more of what it is that you're looking for in your own life. That's awesome. But you've got to do that now with intent. Well, shared with you a couple of things today, and here's the final thought. Many of us out there, we have a one day. We also have a someday. But right now, the only thing that we know we've got is today. See, a year from now, you're going to wish you started today. A year from now, you're going to wish you began or are already receiving the results that you're dreaming of. Hopefully, you'll be that person a year from now that says, you know what? It started because I was willing to begin to think differently.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cash Flow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, cashflowdiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cash Flow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.